You're welcome back. Now, government hopes to close a deal with investors who are interested in buying its 10-year bond. Institutions leading the transactions over the past days have been engaging potential buyers to ensure it's able to raise the targeted amount. George Riafe tells us more.
Government, through the three institutions appointed to handle this historic transaction, that is Barclays, Stanbic and Finance House, SAS, are hoping to finalize the expected interest that should be paid on this bond today. Joy Business is learning that there are proposals to pay investors between 18 to 19%. However, sources say this price could be reviewed today. If the state settles on this rate, that could influence the cost of credit over this period for even businesses, a development that some have described as still being expensive, even though the prospectus for the bond is silent on the amount to be raised. The Treasury and Bond calendar released earlier this year shows that the state might be targeting 200 million Ghana cedis. But looking at the previous interest the recent bond issued, it is likely that government may accept more than the initial amount it is targeting. The Minister of Finance, Tekpa, is hoping to use this bond to extend the time it takes for government to pay back these securities issued. According to some analysts, this will free up the short-term space for businesses to borrow from commercial banks at a favorable interest rate. Some have also argued that government can go this way to raise the required funds for infrastructure projects. By the close of this year, government is targeting to raise some 60 billion Ghana cedis through the issuance of bonds and treasury bills. However, with the public debt reaching 110 billion Ghana cedis as of July this year, there are some who are worried about this approach of raising funds if they are not being advanced to places that can pay for itself.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of Investment House Synergy Ghana, Mike Kobler, says even though the decision to issue the bond is good, he is worried about the timing.
Timing in issuing of these bonds is very important. I would have expected that we would have waited to see inflation drop and also subsequently the rates of the treasury bills and shorter term instruments also drop subsequently, so that we will be issuing bonds maybe at a rate, 10-year bonds at a rate of 15% or less, so that it can be attractive for industries to borrow to expand their businesses. So in terms of cost, it all depends on the current rates that we have available on the market and the general perception of investors. If investors believe that beyond this year, we're going to have the rates dropping rapidly, people want to lock in the 10-year bonds, to hedge against their long-term funds that they have, so that when the rates drop at the shorter end, it doesn't affect them. So the pricing really depends on perception. It also depends on the yields that we have on the current instruments on the market, because investors will want to be compensated adequately for the risk that they are taking in investing in long term.
And away from that, the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, ICU, says government must, as a matter of urgency, deal with the unfair trade practices and competition faced by local cement manufacturers in the country. According to the General Secretary of the ICU, Solomon Kote, the unfair practices enable foreign cement importers to flood the local cement market with low-priced cement of questionable quality to the detriment of the nation. According to him, the practice has crippled many businesses and has also resulted in some job losses already.
All the cement importers that we find in this country carry the following privileges: ECOWAS trade scheme, which does not attract any duty, 30% export in subsidy from their respective governments. Dumping, here we mean selling the cement in Ghana far lower than the countries from which these cements have been brought into our country. It must be noted that if local cement manufacturers were also accorded same privileges as those being granted import by their respondent governments, they could compete fairly with the foreign importers of cement. It must again be noted that currently those foreign cements that find their way into the country is described as semi-unfinished cement, and only 10% import duty is paid, whereas it is indeed a complete finished cement that can be delivered directly from the ship side to the customer for any construction work. Whatever trade protocols, agreements, or arrangements that the Ghana government or its agencies have made with the foreign producers and importers of cement to Ghana must not place our local cement industry to a disadvantage.
Now, the union is also demanding government immediately put in place the 5-member commission to enforce and implement the Ghana International Trade Commission Act 926 of 2016, recently passed in Parliament.
We call on the minister to do the following. 1, to put a cap or regulation on quotas as per the LI 2240 and get it signed. To clear the issue of license approval process as per the LI 2240 with the Cement Monitoring Committee. 3, to review any inimical trade protocols, agreements, or arrangements with foreign cement producers, importers that have been found to undermine cement produced locally in this country. 4, to check and put a stop to unfair trade practices by foreign cement producers, importers, which cause unfair competition in the cement industry in Ghana. The minister must, as a matter of urgency, liaise with His Excellency the President for the inauguration of the 5-member commission to enforce and implement the Ghana International Trade Commission GITC Act 926 of 2016, recently passed by Parliament. We demand that the Commission is inaugurated and sworn into office as soon as possible to enable it.
Also on the marketplace now, let's do some oil and gas stories. The Savannah Accelerated Development Authority, SADA, has signed a memorandum of understanding with Italian Petroleum Exploration and Production Company, ENI, to develop a solar plant within the Savannah Ecological Zone of Ghana. Managing Director of ENI Ghana, Fabio Cavana, signed the agreement on behalf of the ENI Group, whilst Chief Executive Officer of SADA, Charles Abogri, initialed for SADA. There's more in this report.
The agreement is part of ENI's long-term strategy aimed at integrating its traditional business with renewable energy sources. Experts believe the Savannah Ecological Zone, which covers about 54% of total landmass in Ghana, possesses a potential for large sources for renewable energy. Speaking at the signing ceremony, Managing Director of ENI Ghana, Fabio Cavana, noted that the agreement will assess the technical and economic feasibility of the solar plant. The project, when completed, would generate about 20 to 50 megawatts of power into the national grid.
ENI is also involved in renewables, and because we believe this is the future, and that's why Ghana has been selected to be one of the countries where ENI wants to get engaged for renewable projects. And that's why we're here with our friends of SADA for signing this MOU, which is targeting to finalize a study for identify a place in the north of Ghana, probably, where to build a photovoltaic plant, capacity of which be between 20 and 50 megawatts.
Grid. On his part, Chief Executive Officer of SADA, Charles Abogri, assured the full support of the authority to ensure the project becomes a success. He was hopeful the MOU will lead to further exploration and development of other renewable sources of power across the country.
We, on our side, SADA will provide all the support necessary to ENI for the technical studies, the location of the appropriate areas, solving the land problems, helping also and supporting them with some of the complicated regulatory arrangements that need to be done for the plant to actually be on the ground and operating. That commitment is part of what we are signing today. So we look forward also to, when this is being successful, the potential for other renewable energy sources in in the country generally, and in the SADA zone in particular.
SADA is expected to provide about 200 acres of land for this project in the zone.
Now, moving on, small and medium-scale enterprises in the oil and gas industry have been challenged to explore alternate sources of financing projects to maximize economic benefits of the resource. Access to funding has proved challenging to many of the enterprises because some banks find the operations risky to support. Speaking with Joy Business Corporate Finance Manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Thomas Che Boateng said SMEs noted the companies in questions may consider options such as partnerships in executing projects. Let's now speak live with Kuku Aban, who is in Takoradi, to bring us some updates of Day 2 of the Stakeholder Summit on local content and participation. Hello, Kuku.
Hi, Emmanuel.
Now, what major issues have come up at the summit today?
Well, today's conference has witnessed a lot of presentations from some of the key players in the oil and gas sector. Talk about Siemens, General Electric, Yinsen, Sui Airman, among others, and their local partners. And actually what has been happening has to do with the exposure of SMEs to what is said to be an avalanche of opportunities in the upstream oil and gas sector. Local companies, according to these giants, can take full advantage of example, machine works in the sector, supply of fittings and hydraulic equipment, links and load testing, among others, a range of opportunities, according to them, that can be exploited. In the new projects, particularly the 10 and Sankofa ENI projects, they're saying they can do so much. And so these SMEs are being called upon to position themselves strategically to be able to successfully exploit these opportunities. They are also being advised against fronting for businesses because some of them just, front for these businesses and they just take their cut and would not necessarily want to play a role or participate in the oil and gas sector. This, according to him, defeats the purpose of the local content agenda.
Okay, now, Kuku, what exactly are SMEs being told to do to help overcome the funding challenge?
Well, one key issue that the corporate finance advisory manager of the PricewaterhouseCoopers, which you just mentioned, Thomas Che Boateng, has been saying is that it's imperative for some of these SMEs to put their heads together, if you like, form partnerships. It could be 2 or 3 companies. After winning their contracts, they can come together. It will make them financially stronger so that they'll be able to execute some of these projects. Some of them, according to him, have been winning the contracts, but because of funding challenge, they are not able to execute it, and they either lose it or they cause the projects to delay, which gives them bad credibility in the future. So he's saying they can come together and do this. This, he says, will go a very long way. According to him, they can also adopt other measures. He mentioned royal facilities, for instance, among others, that they can exploit. So these are some of the areas, according to him, they can look at in addressing the funding challenge.
All right, thank you very much, Kuku Aban, for the updates. Kuku Aban is our correspondent taking part in the second day of the local content confab currently going on at Takoradi in the Western region. Moving on, the Ghana Union of Traders Association, gov't, says its concerns on the influx of foreigners in the market space of local traders are still relevant. President of the association, Nana Berima Ofuriameyao, outlined the concerns when the presidential candidate of the NPP called on members of the association at its secretariat here in Accra. Chinese, Nigerians, Malians, and people from all walks of life are said to be engaged in the retail business in the country.
The NPP presidential candidate first visited a Civil and Local Government Staff Association secretariat where he had interactions with CLOSAC members on how the NPP manifesto could be realized. Some party bigwigs present at the event were the incumbent MP for the Blekuma West constituency, Esla Usu, former Information Minister Stephen Asamoah Boateng, and Alan Chamantin. Nana Akufo-Addo bemoaned the high level of corruption in the civil service. He was also worried about the over-politicization of the sector, emphasizing that promotions must be based on merit.
That a Ghanaian public service, a Ghanaian civil and public service, that is operating in a multi-party democratic environment, is required to be A, neutral, apolitical, not in terms of individuals not having their political associations and feelings. That's not possible. You will all that. But as a body, as an institution, to be apolitical, to be neutral, professional, available to whoever wins political power through the ballot box to be able to put their programs into action. Therefore, it means that promotions, advancement in the public service, in the civil service, ought to be a function of merit, of efficiency, of ability, and not of political allegiance.
His second stop was at the Secretariat of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. President of the association, Nana Berimo Foriamayao, decried the influx of foreigners in the retail space of Ghana.
The influx of foreigners into the retail sector of the economy. Before I go about explaining Nana and your entourage, let me say that the Ghanaian businessman has been relegated to the background. We have been third-class citizens in terms of our business operations in this country, and that must not be allowed. We are not going to entertain that. We are saying this because we have fought on this issue on numerous occasions.
Now, after an increase in the last 2 consecutive months of August and September, inflation has now recorded a decline of 1.4 percentage points. The rate for the month of October reduced to 15.8%, down from 17.2% in September.
Deputy Government Statistician Dr. Banwadi announced the inflation rate at a press conference in Accra. He noted that food and non-alcoholic beverages group were identified as the key drivers for October inflation.
The year-on-year inflation rate for October 2016 was 15.8%. This means that the change in the general price level was 15.8% over the one-year period, October 2015 to October 2016. The year-on-year inflation rate for September 2016 was 17.2%. The monthly change rate for October 2016 was 1.4%. This means that the general price level went up by 1.4% between September 2016 and October 2016. The monthly change rate for September 2016 was 0.2%.
This means even though the general price levels of goods and services remain high, the rate of increase in the month of October was lower than in September. He explains the factors that accounted for the decline.
Realize that for both non-food and food, there were reductions in the rate of inflation, the overall rate of inflation, but it was more for the non-food. The reduction was higher for the non-food than the food. Now for the non-food, we realized that there were reductions in such items as education and culture, education, housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels. Then also household furnishings and equipment also fell. And these basically accounted for the reduction in the non-food inflation.
And that's all in this edition of The Marketplace. Thank you very much for your attention, and do join me again same time tomorrow for other developments in the world of business. My name is Emmanuel Boachi. Have a great afternoon.